Thank you, everyone, for joining me on another awesome episode of the Lyme Boss podcast. I'm Heather Gray, aka the Lyme Boss. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and bioenergetic practitioner, and I like to work with frustrated professionals who've been everywhere they can't figure out because your lab results look normal, right? But you feel anything but normal. It's not all in your head. It could be undiagnosed Lyme disease, like it was for myself. And I like breathing on other practitioners doing all kinds of other healing modalities in the world, right? Because there's not just one way to heal. And the same tide raises all ships. So here's one today. I'm be talking with a fellow practitioner. He's a healing and transformational coach. His name is Ricky Wilson. So let's welcome everybody, Ricky, to the show. Thank you, Ricky, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way this world works. I was first introduced to JP, and then through JP, I was introduced to you, and then it's just like this cool little rabbit hole of awesome people, right? So because when you're vibrating at the right frequency, then you start to attract your tribe. Because
Yes.
there's the opposite in the Lyme world, right? There's the people who like to stay in victim and spinning sickness mentality, and it seems like you and me and JP and a few others out there are kind of focusing on a different a different type of
Yes.
energy, a different type of healing. So when I heard your story, I was like, holy shit, I have to have him on. This is not a story that I've had on before. So you definitely have some uniqueness to you. I mean, we all do, but you definitely the story. I can't wait to jump in. So why don't we do that? JP, or not JP. I'm gonna keep doing that a few times because I met you through JP and I have JP on the brain. But Ricky,
Right.
tell us your story. How did you get into being a healing and transformational coach into the Lyme world? Most of us get there because we have a story, because nobody wants to work with Lyme unless you've got some skin in the game. So start us from the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you again. My journey, started as with many that I had some symptoms going on. I live in the Northeast, and the first symptoms I noticed, and this was in 2017, that I started losing sensation in different parts of my body. And so, like anybody, you got something going on, you go to the doctor. I also noticed a small red ring on my torso, and not a bullseye per se.
Oh, not a bullseye.
It wasn't a bullseye per se, but it was just enough to get me to go on, hey, maybe check me for Lyme. So I went to my primary care physician, and she tested me for Lyme using the Western blot through the hospital. It came back positive. When they ran the bands, I didn't have any bands. So they told me it was a false positive. Let's rerun the test. Okay, no problem. It it came back positive again with one band 41 this time. Well, it's not Lyme, but I'm going to send you to infectious disease. Okay, sure. So I go to infectious disease, and that doctor tells me, well, you don't have Lyme. You may have had it at some point in your life, but you don't have it now. And not fully understanding Lyme at that time, I'm like, great, then what's wrong? Well, I don't know. So that started my journey. And I started getting passed from doctor to doctor to doctor, all going, we know something's wrong, but we have no idea what. And this progressed over a course of 2 years. And in that time, I saw 13 different doctors. I was progressively getting worse. Not only was I, experiencing more symptoms, but there's an emotional side to all of this that of the unknown, right? The more you go without an answer, the scarier it gets. And you're getting worse all along. And so I just kept getting passed around. Meanwhile, my labs, like my cholesterol was 450.
Oh,
and
please.
I was working out at the time. I was eating healthy. My cholesterol was 450. My LDL was 350. My HDL was 8. And so they're doing blood tests, sending blood off to Boston Heart, and they want to prescribe me medications. And thankfully, I couldn't take a statin because it would cause a lot of more pain for me. I have resistance to statins. But anyway, that went on for 2 years. And, I just progressively got worse. But all along, I'm thinking, no, it's not Lyme. it's got to be something else. And then eventually I got to a doctor where they started throwing around ALS and MS. And I'm like, oh no, it can't be that, right? It can't be. That's scary. And so thankfully, through some right channels and some friends, somebody referred me to a Lyme literate doctor. And Dr. Oreo Nishi, Blackwater Osteopathic, he ran the IGeneX test. That test came back positive. He diagnosed me with chronic Lyme. He did not run co-infections at the time, but it did later on diagnose me with Babesia as well. So like many, I went years without being diagnosed or misdiagnosed, and continued to just get sicker and sicker. And I feared that I was going to end up in a wheelchair by the way, how much I was progressing in a very short period of time. And I have 2 little girls and a wife, and I could not be the person I desired to be for them. I mean, it took all I had to go to work if I could get out of bed. But so that's 2 years, 2017 to 2019, 13 doctors, hundreds of tests, muscle biopsies, all that stuff. But anyway, once I was diagnosed, I started to do homeopathic treatments for Lyme. And of course, I started herxing and getting worse from there.
So was that through, was that Des Bio or a different company?
That was through a different company. And this was my doctor, doing the homeopathic treatments at the time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, well, it was great to have finally a diagnosis, something to put it to. It's chronic. It's for life. And so I'm going to have to deal with this the rest of my life. And at that time, I was carrying around what I call my drug bag. It was a lunchbox bag full of just different supplements and different things that I was, it becomes a full-time job to do all these things. This went on for about 4 weeks, and I tumbled even further down in mentally, emotionally, and physically. I was really ready to take my own life. I was to the point, I was to the point where I was getting ready to make videos for my daughters, goodbye videos. And so this went on for about 4 weeks after my diagnosis. And then one day, my daughter was 4 at the time. She asked my wife if Daddy would ever be happy again. And that was a pivotal moment for me. It really hit deep within me. And because I've been around in my immediate family with suicide, I knew that was not going to be an option. I know the devastation that leaves behind. And I just could not do that. So when my wife shared that with me, I thought, you know what? Nope, you're not going to get me. I'm going to do whatever it takes. Like, I took it to a whole different gear. And I'll share in a minute kind of what transpired after all this. But at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea that how I was going to get better, how long it was going to take. All I knew is I made up my mind. Nobody was going to tell me otherwise. And I was going to do it for my family. My girls were my why. And
that's huge. So, when I'm working with folks, right? Like, that's even in part of the intake forms that I have them fill out, is like, what is your why? Because if you don't have something to anchor back to, this journey sometimes can take you some different places, right? Just like what you experienced yourself. And if you don't have that strong why, it can be really, really tough to move forward. So I just love already that we're talking about the mindset piece of this. And really, I mean, you have to make up your mind that you want to get better. And it's sad with a lot of the folks that I even work with, they still spin and they still kind of stick to victim. And yes, rightfully so. My uncle killed himself when I was 4. I had multiple suicide attempts myself. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I could be very justified in my victim, right? I could find all kinds of people who would commiserate with me, and I would stay sick, right? You don't get better in that. So I love that you just said you made up your mind. So thank you. Sorry, continue.
No, absolutely. You're right. And it was so important because that started something. But it was not right then and there. I just set an intention, not knowing any idea. But I'm like, I'm going to do it. Nobody's going to tell me. I don't care if it's not possible. So I started on that process. Now I don't call them bad days anymore. What I call them were challenge days or growth days. So after that happened, I was at my worst. And there were a few days after that, I couldn't get out of bed for days. And I had terrible insomnia, couldn't sleep for days. And that was the most frustrating thing for me because it's sleep. All I wanted to do was sleep. And I couldn't do it. I would have the twitching and just arm spasms throughout the night. But things started to change. And mainly what started to change is not that I started to get better right away. It was when I was in those days, my responses to those days changed. I stopped calling them bad days. And my wife, she's very supportive. It crushed her to see me in that much pain. Mm-hmm. And I remember her telling me shortly after that, setting that intention, she goes, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing. I'm so sorry you're having such a bad day. I was like, you know what? It's okay. This is teaching me. So my mindset had shifted so much that I started to look at everything like an opportunity. Couldn't get out of bed? Great. Just means my body needs rest. I'm going to heal faster. And I started, they're not great affirmations. And I didn't even know I was doing affirmations at the time. But I started saying, hey, I don't have Lyme. Lyme has me. And I'm going to win every single time. And I started to kind of joke around with my wife, like, I'm going to be on the cover of Limelight magazine. I had no idea it was an actual magazine at the time. And I haven't been on the cover, but it was just kind of like, putting it out there that like, this is where I'm going to head.
You'll be on the cover of the Lyme Boss podcast.
There we go. Yeah, even better. And so over a course of a few weeks, now it's a roller coaster. It's not like the fear and all the doubt and all that didn't come up. It was that I just didn't pay attention to it. It was there, but I was so dead focused on I'm getting better every single day. And sometimes there were days that felt like it was 10 steps backwards. I just said it was the slingshot loading. I'm just going to go forward even faster. I just reframed every single thing. In 2 weeks.
Huge.
Yes, it is. It's so important. But we mentioned the why, and the why is so important because when you get into those growth days, you still got to keep that focus. Not that you have to be positive all the time either. It's not like I was positive.
Thank you for bringing that in, because toxic positivity can be almost just as detrimental, because a lot of the reasons we've gotten sick to begin with is because we have not learned how to listen to our emotions and our feelings, and we've stuffed them and put them in places where they've festered and created dis-ease, right? So the toxic positivity, the spiritual bypassing, this is not what we're talking about. It's having those challenging days, acknowledging them, right, but still continuing to move forward, not letting them throw you too far off track. So thank you for bringing that in as well.
Yes, absolutely, because I see that a lot. You just can't be positive. No. Right. When I was deep in my emotions, when I was having the panic attacks, I just kept telling myself it's okay. I accepted where I was, but not who I was. And I looked at it as this is leading me to being 120% better. That was my intention. That was my goal, to be 120% better, because I was here. I'm going to go up here. And after 3 weeks, I barely had any symptoms, and I didn't change. I actually started doing less treatments. And it was just like things just started working after I set that intention. And then on week 4, I was just, so much has changed in my perception that I was just happy. It didn't matter that I was sick anymore. I was like, I'm just enjoying life. I saw the beauty. I started to see the beauty in life. But one thing is I still felt weighed down by just baggage of life. Just the things that I've gone through, some traumas, just anger that I carried, emotional baggage. And so it was October 13th. I'll never forget this day. I was, working out in the yard, and I'd listened to a lot of motivational stuff afterwards, where I was listening to some hard, deep, kind of dark music. I started listening to these motivational things all the time, and
I
it
used
kept
to
me in an
listen to
elevated
such
state.
angry music, and it's funny,
Yes.
like I will put on old Megadeth and old, this angry scream music, and I can't hardly listen to it anymore. Like it's just
Same
like
here.
I don't vibrate with it anymore. I'm like, and it makes me kind of sad that at that point that angry, lived in me, like to the point where I could scream along with that music. But yeah, it's funny how that works as well. Actually, before we get in, I think we're getting into the part that we're getting into. So we're gonna take a quick
Yes.
no, let's not. Let's get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know where we're headed.
I do know where you're headed. I'm so excited.
So I'm feeling better. I don't even care that I'm sick anymore. I've accepted my journey. I'm embraced it. It became, I started to love the journey of just like, hey, I'm learning a lot through this, a lot that I wouldn't have had to, but the baggage was still there. And so I was working out in the yard, listening to some motivational stuff. And it just kind of came to me. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with all this baggage. God, I give everything to you. Just surrendered completely in that moment. Not having any clue what was going to happen. I didn't even believe in this type of stuff at the time, but I was instantly healed. I spontaneously healed in that moment. But more so than that, I also had a spiritual awakening, which I didn't even know was possible at the time. It was an out of body experience. And the best way I can relate to what I experienced there was like similar to a near death experience. Now, I did not physically die, but what I felt physically was this huge surge of energy that flowed through me. And what I understand now is in that surrendering, I removed all these emotional blocks that were preventing me from healing. And I was embraced by this most incredible unconditional love, showing me that love is all that truly exists. And I will share this only from my experience. And there's many things that I experienced and so much information that came to me at that time. But I had like a life review. And because I had lived in a place of fear my entire life, and not, just not talking phobias, just fear of not being enough, fear of
Were you a type A personality before you got sick?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very, very common thread of those of us, especially entrepreneurs and those of us who have with a chronic illness, that fear of not being enough. Am I worthy? It is insane the amount of certifications. It's insane the amount of, everything that I have done since then to just prove my worth, prove my worth. To who? I'm already healed. Like, who do I need to prove this to? But I still found myself, now I do it because I love learning, right? And I love, being on the cutting edge. But before it was just this driving, pounding, never enough, never enough. So that fear, man, it's a bitch.
Yes, it is. And it caused me to, it was a driving force, but it was not a favorable driving force at all. And I looked outside of me for happiness all my life and fulfillment and all of these things. And athletics, I was athletic and all these things. I thought I was having a pretty successful life, but it was never enough. And this, going through that experience showed me that I'm just sharing from my experience that I actually created my own Lyme disease. I manifested my own Lyme disease. I understand how that sounds. I can only share from my experience. But I had made choices that had led me in life to a particular place at a particular time to get Lyme disease. I know, but I just have to share that.
Oh, 110%. I say it all the time that I was the perfect host, that my early childhood trauma, my standard American diet, my parents who were smokers in the house and in the car, all these toxins and all these things made me the perfect host. I became the perfect storm to be the perfect host. So no, absolutely. And then the fear and then the worry and the doubt, anger, especially anger is one of the most corrosive on our bodies. Like, it's insane. And I remember at the age of 13, I was in anger management classes at the age of 13 when I was playing basketball. My nickname was BA for bad attitude, so, and it was, so no, it's a no wonders. No, thank you for bringing that in. It's not just your experience. Like, I'm finding a very similar thread with most people, and they need to hear this, even if they can't resonate with it at the time, maybe dropping these seeds at some point, they will be able to connect the dots and see how they became good hosts themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had to accept my part in getting that, but that's also empowering. So if I create it, then I also create it now, co-created. There is a divine aspect of this, but it transformed my entire life, and it turned Lyme into this beautiful, amazing blessing. But at my worst, I had to start treating it that way. Not when I started seeing improvement. That's the difference. Had I waited to see improvement, or I'll start doing these things when I get better. And this means a lot of forgiveness. I had to love myself, most importantly. Taught me how to have a terrific relationship with myself. When I set that intention, that's what started to change, was my internal dialogue, how I treated myself. Before, when I couldn't get out of bed, I beat myself up so bad. I'm like, I got to go to work. I got to get the grass mowed. I got to do all these things. And you're not doing it. And you start to just really judge yourself and all of that. And like you said, the anger and self-criticism and self-judgment are so toxic to the body. And, it was as I addressed those things that my symptoms and suffering quickly subsided in those couple of weeks. And it was that complete surrendering. I had to reprogram my subconscious for that surrendering to accept, but I became nobody, no place, no time, nowhere. And it was revealed to me who I truly am. It was a journey of self-discovery all along. Like, Lyme's what I needed, because I thought I was going pretty good in life. I thought life was great, but I wasn't truly happy. And I don't even think I was that conscious of it. It was like, yeah, life's pretty good, but I need to keep going. My wife would tell me all the time, when's it enough? And I'm like,
yeah, right. You got the wife, check. The kid, check. The house, check. Your athletic, check. But were you happy?
No, I was deeply unhappy, if I'm being honest. And in fact, I struggled with depression most of my life.
I was an extreme party girl when I finally got diagnosed. I was early childhood trauma, daddy issues, exotic dancer, turned hairstylist. So in a very toxic, chemically toxic environment. So I was in an emotionally spiritual toxic environment, moved into a physically toxic environment. And yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for this disease and this spiritual awakening myself, I'd be dead. Or I would be homeless. I would be another statistic, really, with the, I mean, just like my siblings, unfortunately. My brother is one of the worst alcoholics I've ever met in my life. My sister continues to eat her feelings and is very, very, not well, but I, like you, finally had my kid, thank God. And I was just like, I don't know how. I don't know how, but I've got to get over this. I got to get better. I've suffered enough. I was undiagnosed for 27 years.
Wow.
So the majority of my life was jacked. And I finally got sick of it being jacked. And it was the same thing. You had to have a mindset. I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this. And I've had the same mindset now with this business. Like, I've been fighting with this business the way I did with my health. It's kind of funny how similar these journeys have been. But I had to finally just like put my freaking line in the sand and say, I am here in business. I'm going to make it. I'm going to succeed regardless. And the first couple of years were a bitch. I can't even get over how hard it's been every day. My poor husband deserves an award for keeping my head on straight, because every day I'm like, this is too hard and it's I can't do it anymore. And he's like my ringside master. He like shakes me up and squirts water in my mouth and me around a little bit and shoves me back out there. Yeah, exactly. Oh, but man, it's the truth though. Like, now that I'm a little bit more on the other side, with my health totally, and then with this business, like looking back at it and going, holy shit, look what I did. Look what's possible. Like, a silly ex-stripper, ex-hairstylist, right? Like, if anybody can pull themselves out and become a success story, like anybody can. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it's not just for some weird chosen few or some sort of educational background or socioeconomical background or race or ethnicity or sex. No, anybody can do this.
Absolutely. And that was shown to me as well, that we all have this ability within. We're all one. We all have that same ability within, but I had to make that choice just like you did. And it's not that it transformed my entire life from hell to heaven. Absolutely. Life's a billion times better now than it ever was. And that changed in a second. But it's not that we don't go through trials or I don't want to say hard times, but there's
Growth
things that
days.
happen.
I love the way you said that.
Growth
It
days.
is
Yes.
total growth days. That was one of my favorite quotes I ever remembered from a pastor long time ago. He said, "You don't grow up on easy street."
Right.
And it's the truth. Like, and we're seeing it, I think, with some of this younger generation, because our generations before struggled so much with poverty and all kinds of things, and we wanted things to be better for our kids. We got them better for our kids, and now we've got a bunch of kids who don't know work ethics, who don't, right? They can't take responsibility for themselves. They have no, fill in the blank. And and I think that's part of it. We've made things too easy for them. And now, just like that silly kids movie, Wall-E. Right? Do you remember Wall-E?
Yes. Oh, Wall-E.
Yeah. And they're overweight in their little electro moped,
Yep.
right? They've lost everything because things became too easy. They're on this ship and everything is done for them. And actually now they're longing to be outside and to be active the way humans were built. So yeah, we don't grow up on easy street. And I don't know where I was going with that, but you had said something along
no, I agree. And in fact, another thing was that I could look back through my life. I was shown, it was not about not going through the traumas. It was not about having those hard times or those things. It was about growing from them. The only thing that got me to where I was at that point was my perception of them. It's not about having life perfectly smooth all the time. No, when the hurdles come, that's when I get excited. Like, yes, here's something to bust through again. It's when those times come that we can grow beyond what we even believe at the current time. And it has transformed entire life for you, for me. And, so when we get into business and these times, there's challenge days, there's many challenge days in this business. But you rise to them. It was about changing me to see life differently. And then all of life changed. And it became this beautiful, embraced journey that's all of a miracle. And it humbled me. That was another thing. I was the type A driven, narcissistic in some aspects because I was raised by a narcissistic parent. But that all served me because now it taught me so much. I got to experience that. Now I can give back and help other people that are in the similar situations.
No, it's absolutely beautiful. Hey there. I used to not be able to drink coffee. I always reacted to it horribly. It hurt my stomach. It made me over jittery and would inflame me and cause histamine issues. But not anymore. Now that since I started drinking Danger Coffee by Dave Asprey, it's his next level of coffees. He came out with Bulletproof, and now this is the next level up. So it is mold-free, toxin-free, and he infuses it with minerals and electrolytes. So unlike other coffees, they can actually pull minerals and electrolytes from your system because it's too acidic. It actually helps replenish those. And so I don't react to it at all. I get to have my Bulletproof coffee with my MCC oil and my grass-fed butter, and I don't get the jitters, I don't get the crashes, and I love how focused and energized it makes me feel. Again, non-toxic, mold-free, infused with minerals and electrolytes. I absolutely love Danger Coffee. Make sure to check out my website, thelymeboss.com. Go to the resource section and get yours. The stuff that you're putting out there, especially on Instagram, is just, I know they probably don't say this word anymore, but I'm going to use it. It's just pure fire. It's just,
thank you.
It's so good. It's like so to the point. I love directness. I don't feel like people can truly heal with this kind of pussyfooting around. Like I think that's another. Oh my gosh, this younger generation, they're so sensitive, and you can't just be direct. Otherwise, it's like, look at his stuff. My kids are like, why are you being hostile with me? I'm like, it's not hostility, it's directness. Right. Like, do you not know the difference?
Yeah.
But yeah. Really, I might ruffle your feathers a little bit, but I need you to think about this differently. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm trying to get you to think. Right. But the stuff that you're putting out is, like I said, it's just like we were separated at birth, and it actually sounds like we had very similar stories, and that's why we're here, and that's why it resonated so much, and that's why I was like, I'm like, I have to have you on here because we need more united voices telling this story, not just from myself or just from you. You know,
Right.
our voices need to come together in a choir singing
Yes.
loudly, right? For all people to hear and wake up.
Yes. I deeply feel that we need to change the entire paradigm around the way we look at disease. You know, not look at it something bad. I know it's scary. I get it. You know, it has killed people. It can make you very sick. You know, it can take people's lives. I get that. But when you remove the fear, when I replace fear with love, I healed very quickly. And I didn't do anything to kill Lyme. I didn't take any antibiotics or anything like that. I did ice baths, saunas, detox my mind, my body, and my life. If it didn't fit in my vision of me being 120% better, nope. I put my phone down. I stopped scrolling. It's all the things I knew to do, but I wasn't doing them. I thought I convinced myself I was doing it. Well, I'm doing everything I can. I'm going to the doctor. I'm taking my supplements. I'm exercising. I do the intermittent fasting. And I'm like, but nothing's working. I wasn't working for me because I didn't have this relationship with me, and I needed that. And that's why I'm grateful for Lyme, and I would go back and do it again.
Well, and those with those type A personalities too, we're really good at checking things off the list to get it off the list, but to actually feel it is what you're doing, being present with what it is that you're doing. Like, I meditated for years without having any kind of benefit from meditation because it was just another one of those things to just check off my list. Yep, I did it. I checked it off my list. To where now I take the time and actually am present. And when I find my mind wandering, right, I get presence. And, I found Dr. Joe Dispenza, I just finished up with his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And a lot of the things that you were saying, he says, part of meditation is, what's the old way of being? Now lay that at, God's feet, universe's feet, your higher power's feet, like whatever it is that you believe in, and then pick up of what it is you want to put on. How is it you want to show up in the world? What do you want to be like in the world? What's the person that but leaving that behind, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And that's why he's one of those people that I absolutely adore, because if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? You're not going to get better in the same energy that created the sickness. And so people they want to hold on to that identity tooth and nail. And it's like, you can't carry that with you into this new life. You can't. You got to let it go.
Yes, I am so glad you brought that up, because I didn't know it at the time what I was doing. But looking back, I had to die to that old state of being. I had to stop claiming sickness. So I stopped. When people asked how I was doing, I'm getting better. I might have felt like crap at the time, but that wasn't a false statement. I am getting better no matter what. And Joe Dispenza, I didn't know of him until afterwards. So when I found him, he was one of the first people after my spiritual awakening that I found in that arena. And I'm listening to this guy. I'm like, this information's out there. He's talking about the exact thing I just did, and I didn't even know it. And I only say that to once I set that intention, I didn't know it at the time, but I was being intuitively guided all along the way. I didn't know more than one step ahead of time, but I knew the next right step. Once I set my mind, it was like setting the GPS in your on your phone. You know the destination where you want to go, but the map's going to tell you where you go. So I just followed that map. I just listened to my body, responded, changed my reactions to it, and became that new person. But I had to die. I had to repent to the old way, pick up the new, and I had to become that healed version of myself. And I see a lot of people in the Lyme groups and stuff. I just want to go back to the way I was. I'm sorry. You got to let that go, because it's meant to change you. I don't see Lyme as a bad thing anymore. I just can't. It was a catalyst for change, and I believe that can be for anybody. I really do. And disease takes a whole new meaning to me now because of my experience, what I experienced during my awakening. Dis-ease is dis-ease. So I had to bring peace and harmony to my internal for it to reflect back to me in the external. And the more I changed me, the more my life changed. And I was on the verge of divorce. My kids did not have a relationship with me because I was so irritable, but I was so mad at myself because I couldn't be the dad for them. And now, immediately after that, my relationships changed. My daughter said, I have my father now. You know how good that felt? My relationships with my friends and family all improved. All of life improved because of Lyme.
110%. And this, what we're talking about, so I was kind of bringing it into business, but it also can be brought into relationships. Like there's nothing that these lessons can't be brought into to improve that specific area in life. So this last summer, I went through a separation with my husband, and I didn't think we were getting back together. But I started using all these principles and just focusing on myself, not what he was doing or trying to change him or anything along those lines. And it was amazing how the shifts in me then was a catalyst for shifts in him. And then now that we're back together, like this is a relationship that I've heard about in the storybooks. Like this is the type of relationship I've always wanted in my life, but I didn't know was possible because I don't know about you, but I didn't grow up with a blueprint for what a healthy, loving relationship looks like. I know what
I grew up with the opposite.
I know what a codependent, narcissistic, shitstorm. I know what that looks like. And so all of it, like I said, all these gifts that I've learned from Lyme, I've now been able to put into these other areas of my life and improve.
Exactly.
It's just been, it's what a gift. Like I talk about it all the time, the gifts of Lyme. And it's funny how people look at me like, I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm like, yeah, you heard me. The gifts of Lyme.
Yes. I call them Lyme life lessons. So yeah, the similar thing there.
Triple L.
Yeah. Yep.
So I know I just completely threw the format out the window, and that's okay. We're not going to pause for a break because I'm just loving this conversation so much. We're going to keep going. But tell us, so how do you work with people now? So then you've gotten these gifts, and now how is it that you use these in your practice?
Sure, absolutely. So my experience taught me so much. Before my awakening, I realized that Lyme was teaching me so much about the mind, the body, and then after the spiritual awakening, the spiritual aspect. So I did not get into coaching right after. I took a little bit of time to really digest everything that took place, and I dove into Joe Dispenza in many different. I wanted to understand it all together. So now what I do is I work with people one-on-one, and I customize it to each person because everybody's in a unique place in their journey and has different beliefs, and that's okay. That's another thing. Do what resonates with you, not what somebody else tells you to do, but what resonates, what lights your soul on fire. So I develop a custom program for each individual person. I work with them. I get down in the trenches with them. I will walk hand in hand with them. And basically I act as a guide rail, and keep them focused on help them develop their future vision of themselves healed, because that's so important. Seeing yourself, imagine yourself better, help them develop that, and then integrate there's so many different tools, but not every tool that worked for me is going to work for you. So we work together, we find the right tools that are going to work for you. And whether it be mindset, emotional support, and it's working through these. But what really stood out for me was changing my thoughts. The more that I changed my thoughts, the more I changed my beliefs, the more that my emotions changed and my perception changed. So as these, it's not that we don't experience those growth days, it's about how we respond to them. So I work with them one-on-one, talk throughout the day with them, and help them reframe and change their thoughts and move through the emotional trauma, the energies of emotions that are going to come up. A lot of people feel the anger come up, and I'm doing something wrong. Why is this anger? Why is this frustration come up? No, let it come up. Invite it up. You want it to come up. That's where, if you're positive all the time, that's pushing it back down, and that's creating an energetic block, and that's keeping that life force that flows through all of us blocked. And that's when I removed those blocks, I became healed, because it could flow through me completely. And it works very well. And I'd like to put a course to it. I just haven't got to that yet.
So with being spontaneously healed, and correct me if I go too far into the woo-woo, because I like I play in all kinds of gray areas. Would you say then, would you consider yourself like some sort of a medical intuitive? Like, did you get more of an intuitive nature after getting this spontaneously healed?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes.
Oh, see, I'm working actually on developing that myself. And I kept getting a hit of like, ask him about if he worked, blah, blah, blah. I was like, why? But because you
I'm
never
glad you brought
know.
that up.
Like some people are like, especially I've found, because I know we love God, we talk about God, and I found that can be a really touchy subject with some
Hmm.
God followers of like, no, there's no such thing as downloads of God talking to you. That's blasphemy, type of thing, to where, yeah, no, Jesus visits me quite often, and I've heard his voice a few times in my life. Um, and now I'm starting to, every day talking to my angels and Jesus to help with the downloads, because why not tap into that higher power, right? Like,
Hmm.
who am I not to? And it's been a beautiful thing. So I was just curious if you had that kind of a miraculous healing. I'm like, I bet you he got something else out of it. So yeah, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. Be happy to. So I remembered a lot during my awakening. Like, it was revealed to me, the veil was removed. And I just experienced this incredible. We're also in this amazing transformation. If I can talk about this too, we're in
Absolutely.
this incredible time of evolution. We're heading to the new earth. And that's why a lot of things seem like they're falling apart, but they're falling together. And it's just the most amazing time. And I was shown that as well. But all of a sudden, I went from one person to the complete next, where my mind was filled with all this new information. Everything is energy, how this all works. My gift is claircognizance. So I just have these internal knowings. I can pick up on people's energies. I also get to feel people's energy. So if one of the people I'm working with is going through a tough time, I'll actually experience it, and then I'll get to move through it myself. And
Mm.
then I can in turn help them through it as well. But I do get, downloads. I didn't meditate before. I meditate every day now because it's just incredible. Um, and I'm still working on developing some of my other gifts, but those came online right away. And I've been actually setting a lot of intention here recently to develop more of those. And I
Me
know how it
too.
sounds. Yeah, it's
No,
incredible.
me too. So it's funny. So my husband works for a company called Humanities Team, and they have a streaming platform. And it's all about raising consciousness in this world. And we got everything from forbidden science of like ancient alien stuff to a lot of mediums and a lot of people who have like courses on building your intuitive nature. And I was like, well, duh, I've got this access to this information. Maybe instead of watching Netflix, let's watch, Suzanne Giesman talking about how to become a medium. And
Hmm.
oh my gosh, the first meditation she took me through, there was my uncle who killed himself
Hmm.
sitting at the chair and the table waiting for me, but I was like too freaked out to talk to him. When he showed up, I was just kind of like, holy shit.
Yeah. When it first happened, you're like, what do I do?
Right, this is
Yeah.
really fast and really intense all at once.
Hmm.
But no, that's been my intention too, because I don't want to say it gets easy again, because there's no real easy. There's always going to be bumps in the road with this life. That's just how life is. But there's a peace that I've experienced for the first time in my life,
Yes.
tapping into
Yes.
this intuitiveness that has just been. So even when it is shit, I'm like, it's okay. It's gonna be
Yes.
okay. Like, I don't know, man. It's just a beautiful place to be. Like, I'm starting to it's just a beautiful place to be. So that's been my intention as well, is developing this and asking, yeah, because two, I feel like I can be more of service when
Yes.
I'm not just having to develop on my poor little, my poor little human brain. If I can tap
Hmm.
into the oneness, right?
Yes.
Ah, it sounds like
Infinite intelligence. Oh yeah. Yep.
absolutely. Sounds
And
like we
you're,
could geek out for forever.
oh, we could on this one. Yeah. And I was scared to share it at first because it was such a drastic shift for me and I didn't grow up around it. But you mentioned the peace, the level of peace that I have experienced because of that, the joy, the fulfillment, the happiness. And happiness to me is now a choice. It's not a feeling. I can choose to be happy in any time. And you said it, the ebbs and flows. It's just like the tides. Life ebbs and flows, but it's how you flow with it. So I surrendered to the flow of life, and it became so beautiful. And it opened up a whole new world. There's so much more out there than I ever knew with the spiritual aspect, and it's just been incredible. And you get to develop these gifts, and I was the person that would kind of, yeah, right. Chakras. What was that woo stuff? I was that person before. Yeah, not anymore.
I've always had a little bit of a wild hippie side to me, so stepping into this it wasn't too far out of my comfort zone. But talking about it most definitely was, and so that's why I was. And it was funny because I told you in the beginning when we first met, I was like, "Yeah, I can't book you. I'm booked until blah blah blah." But I got an intuitive hit as soon as that came out of my mouth. Get him on sooner, and I was like, "Okay." So, and then
Yeah.
you are, and now I know why, because like I said, it just also fuels me, because sometimes this road can seem kind of lonely and isolating. And that's part of the reason why I like to put this information out there, is because, again, like I said at the beginning, the same tide raises all ships, right? We need to come together and acquire, we can get more sound out than just one person, screaming
Yes.
alone. So yeah, I'm glad I listened to that intuitive hit and got you on sooner, and you booked rather quickly. So it was beautiful. All the timing was just very gorgeous and how this all worked out, but
All in divine timing. Yep.
right. It's amazing. So, how can people find you if they want to? This is the shameless plug time of the show. So how can people find you?
Sure. Absolutely. You can find me mostly on Instagram. That's where I share most of the information. It's where I spend most of my time. It's at the power _of_you_coach. A lot of underscores in there, but the power of you coach. Same on a TikTok. And I also have a Facebook page. Same at. And then my website is thepowerofyou.bio, where I share a lot of my story, blog posts, and just different information on there. It's a different approach, but I see it as you can approach it. And I'm not saying you don't have to address the physical and support the body and all of that, but support the body with minerals and different things, and have a doctor. I'm not saying don't have a doctor either, but there's a top-down approach too. Like you said, the internal changes. My wife and I have gone through a growth year recently.
You too, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
it seems to be in the air.
It is definitely in the air where, for everything that's taking place right now and all these shifts happening. But
I saw that you just had a anniversary. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much. 15 years and 22 total together.
Wow.
But I'm happy to say our growth year has brought us closer together. And I changed one thing. So, there's been a lot of changes, and me focusing only on this work, quitting my 9-to-5 job. She graciously went back to work so I could focus on this. And that was a stressful time. She was a stay-at-home mom. She homeschooled the kids. Well, now I homeschool the kids. But that was a lot of changes. So it put some tension in between us. And she was stressed out all the time. And I just wanted to change her. And I'm like, no, wait a minute. She needs to go through this. I need to change my internal narrative. And let me tell you how much easier that is and how much faster that works than trying to change the outer world is to labor in vain. I do not do it anymore. If I see something disharmonious in my reality, I am changing me. And that's so true. There's so many sayings that are so true now. But when you point the finger, there's fingers pointing back at you. Yes, there was three fingers pointing back at me.
Oh, yeah, all those don't become cliches without some sort of validity behind them. And I've been loving, like I said, the whole nothing changes if nothing changes. There's so many beautiful ones out there, but it is like I said, we went from seriously signing divorce papers to 3 months later being in the best relationship I've ever been in my life. And I couldn't even, I'm so grateful for him every day. I look across at him and my heart is so full. And who would have thunk? And we didn't get into couples therapy. I did demand that he got sober. That was part of it, but and I could have been the victim there too. Well, he blah, 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 blah. But no, there was my part in it as well. And that's what I needed to focus on and heal. And then he was able then to kind of take a step back and go, wait, that's not what I want. That's not the life I want. I see how happy and amazing she is. Like, I completely shifted and he started falling in love with me all over again. And the thought of losing it really kind of started to freak him out finally. And then he was like, maybe I should pull my head out of my butt. But it was beautiful.
Right. And congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And similar here, like our relationship's so much stronger. So it's not about going through those times. It's about growing through those times. And and letting it reveal to you different aspects of you. It's a beautiful journey of self-discovery, self-mastery. But when I started changing this and connecting these two, life becomes incredible.
For those who are just listening and not watching, he was pointing to his head and to his heart.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Connecting to his head and to his heart. Yeah,
Yes.
no, because I didn't want that to be lost, but no, absolutely. Oh my gosh, Ricky, this has just been so much fun. I can't even. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody else, if you have heard something that has resonated for you, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share, because that is how this information gets spread. That is how we wake up and heal the next person, the next person, the next person. So please make sure that you like, share, subscribe. Make sure to follow Ricky on Instagram, and also make sure to get to my site, thelimeboss.com. Download your free cooking video series, Real Cooking for Real Life. I show you how to make amazing, delicious, healthy meals, 20 minutes or less. And for the rest of you, have a healthy day. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode. Even if you found one little piece of inspiring nugget in it, this is how we change people's lives. This is how people get better. This is how people get hope. So please make sure that you are liking, sharing, and subscribing. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're not going to want to miss it. And while you're at it, head to my website, thelimeboss.com, and make sure you download your free video series, Real Cooking for Real Life. Learn amazing, delicious meals in 20 minutes or less. Learn why and how we cook certain things that are toxin-free, free of contaminants, and how to get a delicious, healthy meal under 20 minutes. You're not going to want to miss out. That's thelimeboss.com.